Okay, I've got a simple module chain set up here with some EQ, some compression, de-essing, and some reverb, and I've adjusted this the way I like it, and here's what it sounds like. I've got a little resonant boost right at the low end and at the high end, and a couple of broad dips, and I'll start with it on and bypass it for you.
Thought I saw my first girl as I checked out of the grocery store. I hadn't seen her for a while now, but she looked so fine. Too bad we closed that door. When I think about us walking on.
Okay, so it's sounding pretty nice, but I want to explore dynamic EQ in this video. I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to start with a new EQ module. And let's look at what this does. Now, the idea is that we click on this triangle here, and we get these extended parameters, and we can click on either gain or frequency. Now, when it's on gain, we have a threshold, and when the signal crosses the threshold, it affects how much that EQ node is either boosting or cutting. And when it is set to frequency, it identifies a harmonic based on where this is at, and it'll dynamically track the frequency as it shifts. Now let's explore each of these in detail. I'm going to just take that off and close it up for the moment. Let's just set this one band.
Thought I saw
Okay, so I want to cut around there, but I don't want to cut all the time. The reason I'm going to use the gain, dynamic gain, which is what I'm going to start with, is that I only want it to trigger this dip when the signal is at a certain level. So let's start by clicking gain, and we can set the threshold where we want. And we have these two arrows for either boosting or cutting. And let's look at them individually. So I'm going to start with boosting. So let's just click away from there for the moment. Now, the idea here is that it's going to increase the gain of this filter when it exceeds the threshold. So when the EQ node is below the zero line like it is now, what's going to happen is the gain is going to increase towards the zero line when it's triggered.
Thought I saw my first girl as I checked out of the grocery store.
And when it's above the zero line, like let's say around there, what's going to happen is the filter is going to set down to 0 dB once it starts. And when the gain is triggered, it's going to increase towards the direction of the node.
Thought I saw my first girl as I checked out of the grocery store. I hadn't seen her for a while now, but she looked so fine. Too bad we closed that door.
And the threshold determines how sensitive it is. Now let's look at the cutting variation. So when the node is above the zero line, like it is now, the gain is going to be reduced towards the zero line. So it's going to start off boosted and then reduce when the threshold is crossed.
Thought I saw my first girl as I checked out of the grocery store.
So different uses for it. Now when the node is placed below the zero line and we're in this cutting mode, the filter is going to sit at 0 dB of gain, and then when it's triggered, the signal is going to be reduced towards the direction of the node. So we're going to start off flat, and it's only going to dip when we cross the threshold.
Thought I saw my first girl as I checked out of the grocery store.
So they each have their different uses. Now, we've all seen dynamic EQs before that do this, but tracking frequency is something I've personally never seen before. So what this does is it identifies the harmonic frequency of where the band is set. And then as the fundamental changes over time during the phrase as he's singing, the frequency of the EQ band is going to update and follow the detected harmonic as it changes with the fundamental. So it's really cool. In other words, it updates to track the harmonic that's closest to the frequency that it detects. So let's start by just turning this off, and I'm going to set this again.
Thought I saw my first girl.
So we can see the harmonics jumping up. So it's right around there. I'm going to turn this on. And let's watch as this follows.
Thought I saw my first girl as I checked out of the grocery store. I hadn't seen her for a while now, but she looked so fine. And
there's no threshold control with this. That threshold is just for the gain. So it's really cool. It tracks the pitch. And let's set it to another harmonic, or fundamental rather, and see how it operates there.
Thought I saw my first girl as I checked out of the grove.
Right around there. And now let's turn this on.
Thought I saw my first girl as I checked out.
So I find that really interesting. It's kind of a dynamically changing EQ node. Now let's talk a little bit about the metering that we're looking at. The input signal is shown in dark gray with no border, and the processed output is drawn in the foreground with a white border. So let's watch the display as it's playing.
Thought I saw my first girl as I checked out.
There's the white border.
Of the grocery store. I hadn't seen.
And in the middle there, we see the little gray unbordered background. Now, the ruler on the left measures the amplitude of the whole spectrum, and on the right, we see the amount of EQ gain that we're either adding or removing. And the composite curve is drawn in thick white, and that's the thick white line, and that represents the combined filter response of all the bands. Right now we only have one band working, but I'll set up another one.
Thought I saw my first girl as I checked out of the grocery store.
So let's make this one dynamic for gain. And because this is above the 0 line, I'm going to put it in boost mode, and now it's going to remain flat and only get triggered at certain amplitudes based on the threshold.
Thought I saw my first girl as I checked out of the grocery store. I hadn't seen her.
So that's the composite line.
Now, but she looks so fine.
And we see the semi-transparent yellow, and that shows the filter response of each band.
Thought I saw my first.
There's that one, and there's that one.
I checked out of the grocery store. I hadn't seen her for a while now, but she looks so fine.
So those are the dynamic processing modes. We'll see you for more in the next video.